Okay, thanks for staying with us. Time now for Media Watch, for which we are joined by James Creedon. Hi, James.
Good evening, Georgia.
Okay, so we're going to start off with the Hamas-Israel conflict, a really big story across the board all this week. And a lot of journalists have actually found it quite hard to remain objective in terms of reporting on them.
Hugely divisive issue, Georgia. So 2 articles that sort of point out why that's somewhat difficult for journalists. One is by Shireen Tadros. I think we have the screenshot of it, Al Jazeera correspondent in the Middle East. We are taught to be neutral, impartial and balanced, she said, but this is not a balanced conflict, and in the pursuit to even things out, some have ended up reporting the wrong story. So in a bid to sort of report things on both sides, you miss, because there's so much more, I suppose, death, and on one side in this particular conflict with over 160 deaths in Gaza compared to, I think it was 6 on the Israeli side, you're trying to do an even reporting on it, and you end up perhaps missing out on some of the details on the side that was more hit. So that's her point essentially, and she points to one example where a TV correspondent she has a lot of respect for threw back to the studio after doing her live piece with the words, as Palestinians call it, the Israeli siege on Gaza. Now, Gaza is under siege by Israel, that's just a fact, but in a bid to sound as neutral as possible, she said, well, Palestinians call it a siege. So you get these sort of anomalies. Also, I suppose, Hamas officials being targeted and then perhaps 10 family members being killed. If the shoe were on the other foot, I think it wouldn't be reported in the same way. It would be a much bigger deal because generally there are fewer Israeli casualties. And on this, on the other side, there's this article in the New Statesman by Professor Alan Johnson. He says, look, why Israel's action in Gaza is not disproportionate. For him, the whole charge of disproportionality is misguided. He said there were 1,500 targeted strikes. You only had 130 deaths in a very built-up area where the weapons caches are, you know, amongst the civilian population on purpose, he says, because Hamas are trying to use human shields. So he said, actually, that's a remarkably low number of civilian casualties compared to Operation Cast Lead the last time. When you look at it, according to him, he also says the law of even Steven in terms of balanced warfare, that just doesn't exist. Disproportionate war is a misnomer where you talk about asymmetrical warfare. So for him, the whole notion of disproportionality is just it's not appropriate to apply to a situation of war.
Okay. Next, we're going to have a look at another battle here in France, that amongst the UMP party, and many fear that this could actually permanently discredit the party.
That's right. Let's take a look at this article here by Ivan Riffol. This, of course, is referring to the battle between Fillon on the left and Copé on the right to take over the UMP party, hoping, I suppose, to be the next right-wing president after Mr. Sarkozy, who managed to straddle different factions of the right wing, which these two pretenders have not really managed to do. Fillon is more moderate, Copé is more, I suppose, right-wing, far-right even, or at least poaching far-right votes. Now, this very divisive battle where they can't decide who won, right, has led this particular commentator to say it could just discredit politicians generally, because the same thing happened to the Socialist Party in 2008, where there was a leadership battle, it was not conclusive, and there were accusations of voting fraud by both sides. So it's happened with the Socialists, it's happened now with the UMP party. Where does that leave the credibility of politicians?
The Socialists seem to bounce back from that.
They did. It wasn't quite as bad as this one, that's for sure. It's not the first time there's been a divisive battle on the political right. I think we have some pictures of Jacques Chirac and Edouard Balladur. This was going back to the early to mid-90s when both of those men had a bitter political row. They were both in the same political family, the RPR. And it was a massive. They both ran for the presidency, being from the same party, so that was pretty unusual. So the right wing is known for its rows.
Okay, and we've got just enough time to have a look at a Japanese panda video that seems to be quite popular
it's
online.
Not as serious as the other two stories, Georgia, but it's got
relief.
Over 2 million hits in Japan and around the world, indeed, in the past. I think we have some images of this red panda in a zoo in Japan, and it's had over 2 million hits. The thing is, he got a bit of a shock when the zookeeper came in, right? He wasn't expecting to see the zookeeper, and that shock has quite amused internet users. Let's take a look at what happened. He's a total diva, isn't he? He's just
That's
totally
actually
overreacting.
He was quite sweet. I would like to see him throwing it on a football pitch.
That's it. For if he was really shocked.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks
He's not a
very
tough guy.
much. Thanks very much, James Coon there with our Media Watch roundup. Okay, well, stay with us. We've got a short break now, and more news and headlines are coming up after this break.